I should have known the moment he stopped asking for my advice. That was the first crack. But back then, when he first called me about that loan, I'd never felt more proud to be his mother. "Mom, I think I'm finally ready. I want to start my own logistics firm." He was 38, married for a decade, 2 young boys, a tight mortgage, and a big dream, but not enough collateral. I didn't hesitate. "What do you need from me?" Not because he begged, he didn't. He just sounded like a man standing on the edge of something real, something his father would have smiled at. And I wanted to be the one who helped him step forward. A few weeks later, I met him at the credit union. His loan officer shook my hand with a kind of deference I hadn't felt in years. "Your financial history is pristine," he said. "With your cosign, this gets approved overnight." And it did. Lucas walked away with a $720,000 business credit line. I walked away with a copy of the paperwork, a thank you dinner, and a promise. "I'll never make a move without talking to you first." That was enough. He'd call before big purchases, ask about taxes, send over vendor contracts for me to double check. I helped him build his first internal budget on Excel over tea and oatmeal cookies. He called me his silent CFO. I pretended to roll my eyes, but secretly, I loved it. When he landed his first major client, he brought me a wooden plaque, "Founding Backbone." I hung it by the calendar in my kitchen. No one else would have thought much of it. But to me, it felt like recognition, like I had a seat at the table, even if no one else saw the chair. That first year, we were a team. The texts, the calls, the dinners. It felt like we were building something bigger than his business, a legacy. And I let myself believe, naively, maybe, that this bond between us, this closeness, this shared purpose, would always stay that way. Have you ever helped someone build their dream, only to wonder later if they ever saw you in it? It always starts small. The shift, the pullback, the silence. The changes didn't happen all at once. At first, it was just the small things. Lucas stopped calling before making purchases. A charge would show up on the business credit line. New office furniture, upgraded shipping software, a consultant I'd never heard of. And I'd tell myself, he's just getting busier. He was growing after all. That's what I wanted, wasn't it? But then the numbers started getting bigger. A $14,000 payment to a resort for a client retreat. A $9,800 invoice from a branding agency. No heads up. No, "Hey, Mom, just FYI." Just silence and a line on a statement. I emailed once. "Saw a few larger charges this month. Let me know if you need help planning the next quarter's budget." He replied with a thumbs up emoji. That was it. I tried not to take it personally. I reminded myself that independence was good, natural. Maybe he didn't want to bother me. Maybe he was trying to step up. But the silence stretched. The updates stopped. My name was still on the account, but I felt more like an observer than a partner. Then came the birthday dinner. We were at a steakhouse downtown, just the family. The kids were drawing on the paper tablecloth. His wife, Emma, was scrolling through her phone. Lucas was laughing with the waiter, joking about being the boss now. I made a small suggestion about a tax deduction I'd read about. Nothing big, just a tip, like old times. He didn't even look up. "It's fine, Mom, we've got it covered. You don't need to worry about that stuff anymore." The words were soft, polite even, but they landed like a slap. I laughed a little, nodded, changed the subject, but inside, something folded, quietly, like paper. That night, I lay awake replaying his voice in my head. "You don't need to worry about that stuff anymore." He used to ask me about every penny. Now I was being asked to stay out, without ever being told why. I didn't argue. I didn't confront. But something shifted. Not anger, not yet. Just a silence between us that used to be filled with trust, and the very first whisper of a question. Had I helped too much? Or had I simply made myself too easy to forget? Let me know in the comments. Did you ever feel like that too? I should have known something was off the moment I stepped into the backyard. It was Lucas's company anniversary party. 5 years since the launch. He'd gone all out. A rented tent, string lights, catered barbecue, printed signage with the company's new slogan, "Built from the ground up." I stood there with a lemon water in my hand, watching guests move from the drink station to the photo booth. Everyone was laughing, shaking hands, making deals, and no one looked at me twice. Lucas was holding court near the grill, smiling for photos with a few investors. I spotted Emma in a fitted green dress, laughing with a woman I didn't recognize. One of the boys ran past me with a juice pouch, barely noticing I was there. No one meant to ignore me, but that's what made it worse. It wasn't intentional. It was instinct. I wasn't part of the center anymore. When Lucas stepped up to the mic, the crowd gathered. I stayed toward the back. He thanked his team, his mentors, his wife, his clients, everyone, it seemed, but me. And then he said it. "Everything we've built, we built on our own. No outside investors, no inherited leg-ups, just grit." I didn't move. I couldn't. I stood there, frozen in place, holding a paper plate with untouched potato salad. No one flinched at what he said. No one turned toward me, because no one knew. I was the ghost in the machine, the name on the loan, the signature no one saw, the invisible backbone. Later, someone handed out slices of cake. I didn't eat mine. I left early, pretending I had a headache. Lucas waved vaguely as I passed. Emma didn't even look up. I drove home with the windows down, the night air cold against my face. Not crying, not angry, just hollow. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, still in my good shoes, and stared at the framed plaque Lucas had given me years ago. Founding Backbone. I'd hung it proudly once. Now it felt like a joke only I was in on. I took it off the wall and set it face down in the drawer with the warranty manuals and old batteries. For the first time, I wondered if I had mistaken usefulness for love. And in that quiet kitchen, I finally felt the weight of what I'd lost. Not my money, not my role, but my place in the story. The email came on a Thursday morning. Subject line, "Signature verification required, security hold on, business line of credit." At first I thought it was spam, but then I saw the bank name, one I knew all too well. I clicked it open, frowning, still in my robe, the kettle whistling in the background. "Dear Mrs. Elaine Becker, we're reaching out to verify a recent extension request on the $720,000 credit line currently under your co-signature." Extension request? I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't authorized a single thing. I opened the attachment, a scanned document, my name, my address, a signature that was supposed to be mine. Except it wasn't. It looked close, too close, but not mine. My heart thudded low in my chest. Not fast, just heavy. I sat down at the kitchen table, steam curling from my untouched tea. I forwarded the email to my personal banker with a short note. "I did not authorize this. Please advise immediately." Then I called Lucas. He picked up on the third ring, sounding rushed. "Hey, Mom, can I call you back? I'm in the middle of something." "Lucas," I said flatly, "did you request an extension on the business credit line?" There was a pause, barely half a second, but I heard it. "Yeah, just a bump. We needed a little cushion for Q4, nothing major." "You signed it in my name." Silence. "Look, Mom, the paperwork's a formality. You're on the account. I didn't think it was a big deal." A formality. That's what I had become. Not a partner, not a mother, not even a person, really. Just a name to be signed, a stamp to be pressed, a resource to be mined. "Don't worry," he added. "We've got it handled. You don't need to get involved." I didn't reply. I ended the call. I sat there for a long while, hands folded in my lap, watching a single tea bag swirl in lukewarm water. I'd told myself for years that helping wasn't about being seen, that it was about love. But maybe I'd mistaken access for connection. Maybe I'd thought that if I stayed useful, I'd stay needed. If I stayed needed, I'd stay loved. That afternoon, I pulled out every file I'd ever saved. Loan documents, bank authorizations, old emails, every signature I had ever given him. And in that pile, I saw the truth, laid out in neat folders and silent paper. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern. And I had allowed it. I woke up before the sun that morning. The house was still, the windows pale with early frost, and for the first time in weeks, my chest didn't feel like it was carrying a weight I couldn't name. I sat down at the kitchen table. No tea, no toast. Just my laptop, a yellow legal pad, and the folder labeled Accounts. I wasn't angry, not anymore. What I felt was clear. I logged into the business credit account first. 3 clicks later, the screen flashed. $720,000 line of credit. Status, frozen. I didn't smile. I didn't even exhale. I just moved on to the next tab. Next came the shared folders, ones I'd created for Lucas years ago. Budget templates, tax strategies, vendor spreadsheets. I deleted each one with a quiet finality, like clearing out drawers after a long move. Then came the passwords: email, cloud, Amazon, banking. I changed every one, not because I expected him to steal, but because I was done leaving the door open. After that, I pulled out a blue binder labeled Estate. I'd created it after my husband died. Inside were the original copies of my will, power of attorney, and medical directives. Lucas was listed as my executor, Emma, my backup. I flipped to the page with their names, stared at the ink for a long time, then picked up a pen and crossed them both out. That afternoon, I called my lawyer, booked a formal update. Then I brewed tea, strong, no sugar, and sat on the porch with a sweater draped over my shoulders. The yard was quiet, the wind gentle, a few birds at the feeder. There was no announcement, no confrontation, just a soft rebalancing of power. Lucas had once told me not to get involved in his finances, so I wasn't. But I was also done funding silence. I was done confusing access with affection, and I was finally learning that sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't yelling or demanding to be seen. It's removing your name from the places they no longer respect it. It didn't happen with a bang. There was no tearful apology, no dramatic confrontation in a driveway, just silence. Lucas didn't call. Emma didn't write. The account stayed frozen. The folder stayed empty, and the phone stayed still. And honestly, that was the gift. I started spending mornings differently, not checking bank statements, not refreshing emails. I joined a ceramics class at the rec center. My bowls came out lopsided, but I liked the feel of clay in my hands. I got coffee with a woman named Ruth, who used to be an English teacher. She said something I still remember. Sometimes we give and give because we think love is a job, but it's not. It's a choice. One morning, I drove an hour out to a town I hadn't visited in years. I walked through antique shops and bought a pressed glass bowl I didn't need, had lunch at a window seat, read 2 chapters of a novel while my soup cooled, and when I came home, nothing had changed. No messages, no voicemails, no "Mom, are you okay?" Just the soft click of the porch light turning on automatically, wired by my late husband decades ago. That evening, I sat down and rewrote my giving rules, not just legal ones, personal ones. I won't fund silence. I won't trade self-worth for belonging. I will give when it feels like a gift, not a duty. I will be okay being alone if it means being whole. I folded the list and placed it in the same drawer where my blank checks used to be. 2 days later, a voicemail came in. Lucas. "Hey, Mom. I know things feel weird. I hope you're okay. Maybe we could talk." I didn't return the call. Not out of bitterness. Not even sadness. I just didn't need to anymore. Because for the first time in a long, long while, I wasn't standing by waiting to be needed. I had reclaimed my time, my choices, my name. That night, I lit a candle, not for ceremony, not for grief, just because I wanted to. And in that quiet flicker, I felt it. Not power, not revenge, just peace. The kind that comes when you finally stop asking to be seen and simply choose to see yourself again. Sometimes peace doesn't come from fixing things. It comes from finally letting go. If that speaks to you, I'd love to know where you're listening from or how this story echoed something in your own life.